equations that contain an absolute value in them. Here's an example that we'll work with, but before we look at this example, in general, when you're solving absolute value equations, you want to remove the absolute value from the equation and then work with it. So the idea is if you have, say, the absolute value of some number or some expression equal to a number, that means that the number in the absolute value sign might be equal to A. That's one possibility. Or it might be the opposite of A. That's the idea we'll use to get rid of the absolute value. A more specific example, if we had the absolute value of x is equal to 2, I think you can see that x would have to be equal to 2, but x could also be negative 2, because when you take absolute value, you get the positive number, or x equals negative 2. So that's the idea we're going to use. We're going to take absolute value, remove it, but we'll actually end up with two equations to work with. So I'm going to recount the equation down here and then work it through. 4 times the absolute value of 1 minus 2x minus 20 equals 0. I'd like to get it in the form where I have absolute value of something on one side of the equation and then a number on the other, a number, an expression on the other. So let's try to get the absolute value part all by itself. First of all, I'm going to add 20 to both sides, and then I'll have 4 times the absolute value of 1 minus 2x equals 20. Now again, I want to get the absolute value all by itself, so let's divide both sides by 4. So I'll get the absolute value of 1 minus 2x equals 5. Okay, at this point, I've got absolute value on one side, I've got a number or an expression on the other side, and I can translate it into two equations to work with. Okay, one equation comes from simply removing the absolute value signs, as you can see here. So we'll have 1 minus 2x equals 5. That's one equation. And then we put or, and or means it's like the idea of union. It's like one equation will work or the other one will work. So we have to consider both cases. There'll be other times the absolute value and we get an and situation, but we'll address those later. The other equation we're going to get, following this form up here, would be what's inside the absolute value symbols, which in this case is 1 minus 2x, being equal to the opposite of the number on the right. So the opposite, or the number of the expression on the right, the opposite of 5, or negative 5. Okay, now once we have it like this, the absolute value signs are gone, we can work both equations through. Over here I would subtract 1 from both sides to get negative 2x equals 4, divide by negative 2 and get x is negative 2. So that should be one number that will work, and I think if you plug it back in, you see it will. On this side, let's subtract 1 from both sides, you get negative 2x equals negative 6. Divide by negative 2 and you get x equals 3. Okay, so we have two answers here. And if you plug 3 in, you'll find that it also works. So our answers are negative 2 and 3 also works. Two solutions, which happens most often when you have absolute value in an equation like this.